The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord was the largest structure ever built by any civilization. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, and its walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Inside this hall, representatives from 200 alien species had gathered. They came from every corner of the galaxy. Some had scales, others had feathers, and some were made of pure energy. They had all come to witness something that happened only once in 1,000 years. A new species was asking to join the galactic community. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the Great Hall. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and calm brown eyes that had seen both war and peace. Behind her stood 11 other humans, the best diplomats Earth had to offer. They wore simple blue uniforms with the symbol of United Earth on their chests. Elena's heart was beating fast, but her face showed no fear. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of. For generations, the journey to reach this point had taken humanity 200 years. First came the discovery that they were not alone in the universe. Then came the long struggle to develop faster than light travel. Millions of people had worked their entire lives for this single moment. Elena carried the hopes of 10 billion souls on her shoulders, the Valorian High. Chancellor floated down from his elevated platform. His species was ancient and powerful. They had ruled the Galactic Concord for 50,000 years. His body was tall and thin, covered in silver skin that seemed to shift like liquid metal. His eyes were completely black, and when he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "Humans of Earth," the Chancellor said. "You have requested membership in the Galactic Concord. We have studied your species for 100 of your years. We have watched your wars, your conflicts, your struggles. We have analyzed your genetics, your psychology, your history. The Council has reached its decision." Lena stepped forward. She had practiced her response speech 1,000 times. She was ready to accept membership with grace and humility. She was ready to promise that humanity would be a good and faithful member of the galactic family. She smiled politely and waited for the good news. But the good news never came. "The Galactic Concord has voted unanimously," the Chancellor continued. His voice was cold and empty of emotion. "Humanity is denied membership permanently." The word hit Elena like a physical blow. She heard gasps from her team behind her. In the galleries above, she could hear alien species murmuring to each other. Some of them sounded amused. Others sounded relieved. None of them sounded surprised. "I do not understand," Elena said. Her voice remained steady, but inside she felt like she was falling. "What have we done wrong? What must we do to prove ourselves worthy?" The Chancellor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You misunderstand, Ambassador. This is not about what you have done. It is about what you are. Your species is genetically unstable. Your emotions are primitive and dangerous. Your history is filled with violence against your own kind. Every analysis we have conducted shows the same result. Humanity is a threat, not just to others, but to yourselves." Another alien delegate spoke up. She was from a species called the Thessary, small beings with green skin and large, gentle eyes. "Perhaps if we gave them more time to develop," she suggested quietly. The Chancellor dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "Evolution takes millions of years. Humans will likely destroy themselves long before they become civilized. We have seen it happen to dozens of species like them. It is simply their nature." Lena felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. Anger would only prove them right. "Then what happens now?" she asked. "Earth will be placed under permanent quarantine," the Chancellor explained. "No member of the Galactic Concord may visit your world, trade with your people, or communicate with your species. You will be isolated for the protection of the galaxy. This is not a punishment, Ambassador. It is simply a precaution. You are too dangerous to be allowed among civilized species." "And if we refuse to accept this quarantine?" Elena asked. For the first time, the Chancellor showed something like emotion. His silver face twisted into what might have been pity. "Then you will be destroyed. But we do not believe that will be necessary. Species like yours always fade away quietly. In a few thousand years, the galaxy will have forgotten you ever existed." The other delegates began to leave the Great Hall. Some of them looked at the humans with curiosity, like scientists observing an interesting but ultimately doomed experiment. Others did not look at them at all. Within an hour, the great hall was empty except for the 12 humans standing alone in the center, Elena's second in command. A young man named David Torres put his hand on her shoulder. "Ambassador, what do we tell them back home? How do we explain this?" Elena did not answer immediately. She was thinking about her daughter back on Earth. She was thinking about all the children who had grown up dreaming of the stars, believing that one day humanity would take its place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. She was thinking about how those dreams had just been crushed by beings who saw humans as nothing more than dangerous animals. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. It was the longest 3 weeks of Elena's life. She spent most of it alone in her quarters, staring out at the stars. These same stars that had once filled her with wonder now seemed cold and hostile. The galaxy did not want humanity. The galaxy thought humans were monsters. When their ship finally entered Earth's orbit, Lena stood at the observation window. Below her, the blue and green planet turned slowly in the darkness. 10 billion people were down there, waiting for news. Hoping for good news, she would have to tell them the truth. She would have to break their hearts. David joined her at the window. "What do we do now?" he asked quietly. Elena watched the sun rise over the Pacific Ocean. Even from space, she could see the lights of human cities glittering in the darkness. Those cities represented thousands of years of struggle, of growth, of never giving up. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. They had climbed out of caves and reached for the stars. And now the universe was telling them they were worthless. "They think we are nothing," Elena said softly. "They think we will disappear quietly and be forgotten." "Will we?" David asked. Elena turned away from the window. There was fire in her eyes now, the same fire that had driven humanity to cross oceans, climb mountains, and split atoms. "No," she said. "We will not. They have no idea what humanity does when the universe tells us we cannot succeed. They have no idea what we are capable of when we are united by a common purpose." She walked toward the door, her shoulders straight and her head held high. "Contact every world leader. Tell them I need to speak with all of them at once. The galaxy thinks humanity's story is over." She paused at the door and looked back at the stars one more time. "They are wrong. Our story is just beginning." 100 years passed. In the great libraries of the Galactic Concord, Earth was barely mentioned anymore. The small blue planet on the edge of the Orion Arm appeared on star maps only as a warning symbol. Restricted zone. Primitive species. Do not approach. Young aliens learned about humanity the same way they learned about extinct civilizations. As a cautionary tale of a species that could not control its violent nature, the Valorians continued to rule the galaxy. With an iron fist wrapped in silk. Their word was law. Their fleets patrolled every sector. Species that obeyed them prospered. Species that questioned them suffered. The galactic order remained unchanged, and humanity was forgotten like a bad dream. But behind the quarantine barrier, something extraordinary had happened. Elena Vasquez had died 30 years after the rejection. But her words had lived on. Her final speech to the world leaders of Earth had been broadcast to every screen on the planet. She had told them the truth about what happened at the Galactic Concord. She had told them about the rejection, the quarantine, and the cold certainty in the Chancellor's voice when he said humanity would be forgotten. And then she had asked them a simple question. What are we going to do about it? The answer had changed everything. Within 5 years of the rejection, the nations of Earth began to unite. It did not happen overnight. There were arguments, negotiations, and compromises that took years to complete. Old enemies had to learn to trust each other. Old wounds had to heal. But slowly, painfully, humanity came together. The threat was too great and the insult too deep for them to remain divided. The unified Terran, sovereignty, was born 20 years after the rejection. For the first time in human history, there was one government for all of Earth. One flag. One purpose. One dream. The petty conflicts of the past seemed foolish now. What did it matter which country had the most land or the strongest economy? The galaxy thought humans were worthless. Proving them wrong became the only thing that mattered. The work began immediately. Every scientist, every engineer, every dreamer was given a single mission: make humanity stronger, make humanity smarter, make humanity ready for the day when they would return to the stars. The first breakthrough came with the alien faster-than-light engine that had been given to humanity. Before the rejection, the Concorde had believed humans were too primitive to understand it. They were wrong. Human scientists took the engine apart piece by piece. They studied every component. They figured out not just how it worked, but why it worked. And then they made it better. The new human FTL drives were twice as fast as anything in the Concorde fleet. But humanity did not stop there. They kept improving, kept pushing, kept reaching for more. Shipyards were built inside hollowed-out asteroids, hidden from any possible observation. Factories produced advanced materials that the galaxy had never seen. Medical technology extended the human lifespan to 300 years. Quantum computers solved problems that would have taken old machines millions of years to calculate. And through it all, humanity maintained perfect secrecy. Admiral Marcus Chen was born 60 years after the rejection. He grew up hearing stories about the Great Humiliation, about the day when the galaxy had looked at humanity and seen nothing but animals. His grandmother had been one of Elena Vasquez's advisors. She had passed down the fire of that day to her children. They had passed it to him. Now Marcus commanded the greatest secret in human history: the Terran Defense Fleet. 10,000 warships hidden in the asteroid fields and gas giant moons of the solar system. Each ship was equipped with technology that would make the Concorde's finest vessels look like toys. Weapons that could disable without destroying. Shields that could absorb anything the galaxy could throw at them. Stealth systems so advanced that human ships could slip through the quarantine barrier without leaving a trace. And they had been slipping. Through 4 decades, the Scout Corps was the most elite unit in the Terran military. Their mission was simple, but dangerous. Go out into the galaxy. Watch. Listen. Learn. Never be seen. For 50 years, human scouts had observed the Concorde from the shadows. They had learned every language, mapped every trade route, and studied every conflict. What they found made them angry, and sad in equal measure. The Galactic Concorde was not the peaceful civilization it claimed to be. Behind the grand speeches about unity and cooperation, there was corruption and cruelty. The Valorians and their allies controlled everything. Smaller species were treated like servants. Their worlds were stripped of resources. Their people were given no voice in the great councils. Anyone who complained was silenced. Marcus had read thousands of reports from the Scout Corps. He knew the truth about the galaxy better than most aliens who lived in it. And he knew that someday humanity would have to make a choice: stay hidden forever, or step out of the shadows and face whatever came next. That day came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Marcus was reviewing fleet readiness reports when his communications officer rushed into his office. Her face was pale with shock. "Admiral, we have intercepted a distress signal. A small agricultural world called Desser, for they are under attack by raiders. Their defense forces have been destroyed. The raiders are demanding surrender, or they will begin killing civilians." Marcus frowned. "Have they contacted the Concorde for help?" "Yes, sir. Multiple times over the past 3 weeks. The Concorde has not responded. The world is too small and too poor to matter to them." Marcus stood up and walked to the window of his office. Outside, he could see the massive shapes of human warships floating in the darkness. Ships that had never fired a shot in anger. Ships that had been waiting for 100 years, the Desari. Marcus remembered that name. They were the species who had spoken up for humanity at the rejection hearing. The small beings with green skin and gentle eyes who had suggested giving humans more time. The Concorde had ignored them then, just as they were ignoring them now. "How many raiders?" Marcus asked. "Approximately 30 vessels, sir. Light cruisers and armed transports. Nothing we cannot handle." Marcus thought about Elena Vasquez. He thought about her words, spoken a century ago. They have no idea what humanity does when the universe tells us we cannot succeed. He turned to his communications officer. Prepare 3 ships for immediate departure. The Prometheus, the Horizon, and the Dawn. I want them at Thesser for within 6 hours. The officer hesitated. Sir, if we do this, the galaxy will know we exist. The secret will be over. Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, it will. We have waited 100 years. We have built our strength in silence. We have prepared for every possible future. He looked out at his fleet one more time. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to learn that humanity is still here, that we never faded away, that we have been watching and waiting and growing stronger with every passing day. He turned back to his officer with a small smile. Contact Commander Sarah Okonkwo. Tell her she has the honor of introducing humanity to the galaxy. Again, the raiders had been terrorizing this Earth for 3 days. Their leader, a brutal mercenary named Krath, sat in his command chair and watched the planet burn. His species, the Vrekin, had been pirates and raiders for thousands of years. They took what they wanted from weak worlds, and the Concord never stopped them. Why would they? The Vrekin only attacked species that did not matter. Krath was getting impatient. The Thessari were stubborn. They had refused to surrender even after he destroyed their small defense fleet. Even after he burned their capital city's food stores. Even after he threatened to start executing hostages every hour until they gave him what he wanted. Signal from the planet commander, his officer reported. They are still refusing to surrender. They say help is coming. Krath laughed. It was an ugly sound, like bones breaking. Help. From who? The Concord has ignored their messages for weeks. No one is coming to save them. No one cares about a worthless farming world. He was about to order another attack on the surface when his sensors officer made a strange sound. It was almost a whimper. Commander, 3 ships have just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They are positioning themselves between us and the planet. 3 ships. Krath was amused. The fools. Tell them to leave, or we will destroy them, along with the Thessari. Commander, I cannot identify the ships. They do not match any known design in our database. And sir, their power readings are unlike anything I have ever seen. For the first time, he felt a small twinge of concern. Open a channel. Let me speak to these brave idiots. The main screen flickered to life. Krath expected to see some minor Concord species, perhaps some idealistic fools who thought they could play hero. Instead, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The creature on the screen looked like the pictures in old warning files. Soft skin, 2 eyes, 5 fingers on each hand. It was impossible. These creatures were supposed to be locked away on a primitive world at the edge of the galaxy. They were supposed to be extinct by now. Attention Raider Fleet, the human female said. Her voice was calm and steady. This is Commander Sarah Okonkwo of the Terran Defense Force. You are engaged in an illegal attack on a civilian population. You have 10 minutes to power down your weapons and surrender. If you do not comply, we will disable your ships and take you into custody. This is your only warning. Krath stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he started laughing. Humans. The quarantined species? You dare to threaten me with 3 ships? I have 30 vessels under my command. I have been raiding worlds since before your grandmother was born. The human did not seem impressed. You now have 9 minutes. Krath ended the transmission and turned to his crew. Destroy them. All batteries. Open fire. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for centuries. 30 raider ships. Opened fire on 3 human vessels. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked across the void. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships did not even try to dodge. They did not need to. The weapons hit invisible barriers and simply stopped. They did not explode. They did not bounce away. They just stopped, like insects hitting glass. The human shields absorbed every shot without even flickering. Then the humans fired back. Their weapons were nothing like the raiders had ever seen. There were no energy beams, no missiles, no explosions. Instead, thin blue lines connected the human ships to every raider vessel simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every system on every raider ship went dark. Engines failed. Weapons went offline. Life support sputtered, but remained functional. The raiders were completely helpless. Their ships reduced to floating metal coffins. The entire battle lasted less than 20 minutes. Commander Okonkwo's shuttle landed in the main square of the Thessari capital city 2 hours later. The people gathered around her were terrified and confused. They had heard stories about humans. Dangerous primitives. Violent animals. A species so terrible that the galaxy had locked them away for everyone's protection. But the creature that stepped off the shuttle did not look like a monster. She was tall, with dark skin and kind eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no weapons visible. Behind her, other humans carried boxes of supplies. The Thessari governor approached her carefully. He was old, with deep green skin wrinkled by age and worry. "You are human?" he asked in a trembling voice. "I am," Sarah said with a gentle smile. "We received your distress signal. We came to help." "But why?" "The Concord told everyone that humans were dangerous. They said you would destroy yourselves within a few generations. They said you could not be trusted." Sarah looked around at the damaged buildings, the frightened faces, the children hiding behind their parents. The Concord said, "Many things about us. Most of them were wrong." She gestured to the supplies behind her. "We have brought food, medicine, and equipment to help you rebuild. Our engineers will stay as long as you need them. You do not have to pay us anything. You do not owe us anything." The governor was silent for a long moment. Tears began to form in his large eyes. "I do not understand. We are nothing to you. We are a small world that no one cares about. Even our own government in the Concord ignores us. Why would you help us?" Sarah knelt down so she was at eye level with the old Asari. "Because 100 years ago, when the rest of the galaxy voted to throw us away, one voice spoke up for us. It was a Thessari voice. Your species asked them to give us a chance. They did not listen, but we never forgot. We never forget kindness." Word of what happened at Thessar 4 spread across the galaxy within days. The quarantined species had returned. The primitives had technology that could defeat 30 ships with only 3. And instead of conquering or destroying, they had helped. More distress calls came. A plague on a mining colony that the Concord had abandoned. Pirates attacking refugee ships that no one would protect. A natural disaster on a forgotten world where no aid was coming. Each time, human ships appeared. Each time, they helped without asking for anything in return. Hi. Chancellor Vorath of the Valorian Empire watched the reports with growing fury. This was impossible. Humanity was supposed to be weak, divided, and dying. Instead, they had somehow become powerful enough to challenge the Concord itself. He summoned his war council. "This cannot be allowed to continue," he declared. "These humans are violating galactic law by leaving their quarantine zone. They are interfering with the natural order of things. They must be stopped." One of his advisors spoke carefully. "Hi, Chancellor. Our analysis suggests that human technology may be equal to or greater than our own. A direct military confrontation could be costly." Vorath's silver face twisted with rage. "Then we will not confront them directly. We will give them a choice. Return to their cage or face the combined might of the entire galactic Concord. No species, no matter how advanced, can stand against 200 civilizations." He recorded a message and broadcast it to every world in the galaxy. "Humans of Earth, you have violated the sacred laws of the Concord. You have 1 standard month to return to your quarantine zone and disable your fleet. If you do not comply, you will face the consequences. The galaxy will not tolerate your interference." President General James Mwangi of the Unified Terran Sovereignty watched the message with a calm expression. He was 70 years old, with white hair and steady hands that had guided humanity through its greatest transformation. When the message ended, he turned to his advisors. "It seems the galaxy wants to talk." "Very well. Let us give them something to talk about." His response was broadcast to every screen on every world in the known galaxy. Billions of aliens saw a human face for the first time in a century. 100 years ago, you told us we were unworthy. You told us to disappear and be forgotten. We chose a different path. We chose to build, to learn, to prepare. Not for war, but for this moment. The galaxy is broken. Its protectors have become its oppressors. The weak are abandoned. The helpless are ignored. Humanity offers a different way. A new alliance built on equality and respect. The Terran sovereignty stands ready to help anyone who asks. The question is simple. Who stands with us? The response to President General Mwangi's message came faster than anyone expected. Within 48 hours, ships from a dozen species arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. They carried diplomats, not weapons. They came with hope, not hostility. The Thessari were first. Their ambassador was the grandson of the governor that Commander Okonkwo had rescued. He knelt before the human council and spoke with tears in his eyes. For 100 years, we have been ignored by those who claim to protect us. For 100 years, we have suffered in silence. But you heard us. You came when no one else would. The Thessari people stand with humanity. Next came the Kryn, a species made entirely of living crystal. They communicated through patterns of light that human scientists had learned to translate decades ago. We have watched you from afar, their leader pulsed. We have seen how you treat those weaker than yourselves. You do not crush them. You lift them up. The Kryn stand with humanity. The Delphini came from ocean worlds, their massive bodies floating in specially designed tanks aboard their ships. Their song echoed through the halls of the human council chamber. The currents of fate have brought us together. We feel the truth in your words. The Delphini stand with humanity. But the most surprising ally came on the 5th day. The Torvani were known throughout the galaxy as the greatest warriors ever born. Their society was built entirely around combat and honor. They had conquered 100 worlds before joining the Concord, and they respected only strength. When their warship entered the solar system, the human fleet went to high alert. General Kresvoth transported down to Earth alone. He was massive, standing over 8 feet tall, with scales like armor and claws that could tear through metal. His eyes were golden and ancient, and they had seen more battles than most species had fought in their entire history. He walked into the council chamber and looked around at the gathered humans and aliens. Everyone held their breath. The Torvani were allies of the Valorians. If they had come to fight, it would mean war. Kresvoth stopped in front of President General Mwangi. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Then the Torvani general did something no one expected. He knelt. "I came to test you," Kresvoth said. His voice was deep and rough. "The Valorians told us humans were weak and cowardly. They said you were animals pretending to be civilized. I wanted to see for myself." Mwangi remained calm. "And what did you see?" "I saw 3 of your ships face 30 enemies and show no fear. I saw your warriors disable those enemies without killing a single one. I saw your people give food to strangers and ask nothing in return." The Torvani raised his head and met Mwangi's eyes. "The Torvani respects strength, but we respect honor more. You have both. We were wrong to believe the Valorian lies. My people stand with humanity." Within 2 weeks, the Free Worlds Alliance was born. 43 species joined, each bringing their own strengths to the coalition. Some brought ships. Others brought technology. Others simply brought their voices, their support, and their hope for a better galaxy. But the Valorians were not idle. High Chancellor Vorith watched the growing alliance with cold fury. Every day, more species abandoned the Concord to join the humans. Every day, his power grew weaker. He had ruled the galaxy for centuries. He would not let primitive apes from a forgotten world take that away from him. "Prepare the war fleet," he commanded. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. If these humans want to play at being a galactic power, we will show them what real power looks like." The Concord fleet assembled at the edge of Valorian space. 200,000 warships crewed by species that had been conquering worlds since before humans discovered fire. It was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Commander. Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, looking at the tactical display. The Alliance fleet was impressive, but it was still outnumbered 5-1. She had spent the past 3 weeks working closely with their new allies, developing strategies and building trust. But she knew that when the battle came, trust alone would not be enough. General Kresvoth joined her at the display. In the weeks since his arrival, they had developed an unlikely friendship. He was fascinated by human history, particularly their wars. He could not understand how a species so violent could also be so compassionate. "You confuse me, Commander," he said one evening as they shared a meal. Sarah smiled. "How so? Your people have every reason to hate the galaxy. You were rejected, humiliated, and locked away like criminals. You spent a century preparing for this moment. You have the power to burn the Concorde to ashes." He leaned forward, his golden eyes intense. "But instead, you help strangers. You show mercy to enemies. You try to build rather than destroy. Why?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "When the galaxy threw us out, we had a choice. We could have let hatred consume us. We could have spent 100 years dreaming of revenge. But we realized something important. If we became monsters to defeat monsters, what would be the point? We would just be proving them right. So you chose a different path. You chose to become what they said we could never be. Not through words, but through actions. Every life we save, every world we help, every hand we extend in friendship is proof that they were wrong about us. That is worth more than any victory in battle." Kresvoth was silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded slowly. "The Torvani have a saying. The greatest warrior is not the one who defeats the most enemies. It is the one who turns enemies into allies. I think your species understands this better than any I've ever known." The 30-day deadline came and went. The Alliance did not surrender. The Alliance did not retreat. Instead, President General Moingi sent one final message to High Chancellor Vorath. "Your deadline is passed, Chancellor. We are still here. If you want war, you will have it. But know this. Humanity did not spend 100 years hiding. We spent it preparing for exactly this moment. Every strategy you might use, we have studied. Every weapon you have, we have countered. We know your fleet better than your own admirals do. We do not want to fight you. But we will not abandon those who chose to stand with us. If you attack, you will lose. Not because we are stronger, but because we are fighting for something worth dying for. You are only fighting to keep power you never deserved." The next morning, the Concorde fleet began to move. 200,000 ships, heading toward the Alliance position at Nexus Point. The largest battle in galactic history was about to begin. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Unity, the flagship of the human fleet. He was old now, over 150 years, but his mind was still sharp, and his resolve was unbreakable. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. In the next few hours, we will face the greatest challenge humanity has ever known. The Concorde believes we are still the primitive species they rejected a century ago. They believe we will break and run when faced with their might. They are wrong. They have forgotten what humans are capable of when we fight for something greater than ourselves. Today we fight for freedom. We fight for justice. We fight for every species that was ever told they did not matter. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity truly is." He looked at the tactical display one more time. 200,000 enemy ships, 43 allied species standing beside humanity. The fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. "All ships," Admiral Chen commanded. "Prepare for battle." The Battle of Nexus Point began at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. 200,000 Concorde ships faced 40,000 Alliance vessels across a field of stars that had never seen such destruction. The Valorian High Chancellor had come personally to witness humanity's defeat. He sat on his command throne aboard the massive dreadnought, Eternal Dominion. certain that this would be the day the galaxy remembered as the end of human arrogance. He was wrong. The first wave of Concord ships rushed forward, expecting the Alliance fleet to break and scatter. Instead, the human ships held their position, their shields, the same technology that had stopped 30 raiders with only 3 vessels, now protected the entire Alliance formation. Thousands of weapons fired at once. Thousands of weapons failed to penetrate. Then the Alliance struck back. Admiral Marcus Chen had spent decades studying Concord tactics. He knew their formations, their weaknesses, their arrogance. Human ships moved in patterns the Concord had never seen, striking at weak points and retreating before the enemy could respond. Drone swarms, controlled by quantum computers, overwhelmed Concord targeting systems. Gravity weapons bent space itself, pulling enemy ships out of formation. But the humans were not trying to destroy. Every weapon was set to disable. Every attack targeted engines, weapons, and shields. The Concord ships were left floating helplessly, their crews alive but unable to fight. This confused the enemy more than any weapon could have. In their entire history, they had never faced an enemy that chose not to kill. 3 hours into the battle, something unexpected happened. A Concord battle group, 20 ships from a species called the Meridani, stopped firing. Their commander broadcast a message to both fleets. We join the Concord for protection and peace. We see neither here. We have watched humanity offer mercy to those who showed them none. We will not fire on beings more honorable than ourselves. The Meridani withdraw from this battle. Within minutes, other species followed. The Thessari ships that had been forced to join the Concord fleet turned their weapons around and pointed them at the Valorians. The Kryn battle cruisers formed a protective wall around damaged Alliance vessels. Even some Torvani warriors who had chosen to stay with the Concord changed their minds when they saw how the humans fought. By the 6th hour, over a third of the Concord fleet had defected or withdrawn. High Chancellor Voreth watched in disbelief as his mighty armada crumbled. This was impossible. He had ruled the galaxy for 500 years. He had crushed rebellions and conquered empires. He would not be defeated by primitives, all remaining. Ships, focus fire on the human flagship, he commanded. Destroy the Unity, cut off the head, and the body will die. 100,000 ships turned their weapons toward a single target. Admiral Marcus Chen saw the wave of destruction coming and made his choice. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. We are going to end this. The Unity surged forward, directly toward the Valorian command ship. Shields absorbed hit after hit, glowing brighter with each impact. The crew worked frantically to keep systems online. Around them, Alliance ships tried to provide cover, but there were too many enemies. Admiral, shields are failing, his second-in-command reported. We cannot survive another direct assault. Marcus nodded calmly. He had known this moment might come. He'd accepted it long ago. Prepare the gravity pulse weapon. Target the Eternal Dominion. We only need to get close enough to disable their command systems. Sir, at this range, the pulse will destroy our own ship. No. Marcus stood from his command chair and looked at his crew. These men and women had served with him for decades. They had built the fleet together, trained together, dreamed of this day together. I am not ordering anyone to stay. Anyone who wants to evacuate may do so. No one moved. The Unity closed the distance to the Valorian flagship. Shields finally collapsed, and enemy fire began tearing through the hull. Explosions rocked the ship. Crew members fell at their stations. But the Unity kept flying, driven forward by engines that refused to die. At the last moment, Admiral Chen activated the gravity pulse. A wave of distorted space erupted from the Unity, washing over the Eternal Dominion and every ship within 10,000 kilometers. Every system on every affected vessel went dark. Weapons, shields, engines, communications, everything stopped at once. The Valorian command structure, which had controlled the entire Concord fleet, was instantly silenced. The Unity, its mission complete, began to break apart. Admiral Chen's final transmission was broadcast to the entire galaxy. His face was bloody, his ship was dying around him, but his voice was steady. Tell them we did not come back for revenge. came back because the galaxy deserves better. Make sure they remember that. The surviving Alliance fleet rallied. Without their commanders, the remaining Concord ships fell into chaos. Some surrendered, others fled. By the 10th hour, the battle was over. The Alliance had won. High Chancellor Vorath was captured alive. He was brought before the new Galactic Council, which now included representatives from humanity and all the species that had joined the Alliance. He expected to be executed. He expected to be tortured. He expected the humans to take their revenge after a century of humiliation. Instead, President General Moyingi offered him a chair. 100 years ago, you told us we were too primitive to sit among you, Moyingi said. Today, we are asking you to sit among us. It's an equal. Nothing more, nothing less. Vorath stared at him in disbelief. You would show me mercy? After everything I have done? After I tried to destroy your entire species? Mercy is not weakness, Chancellor. It is the ultimate strength. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. We spent a century asking ourselves what kind of civilization we wanted to be. We decided we wanted to be the kind that builds bridges, not burns them. The kind that offers second chances, even to those who never offered us one. Vorath was silent for a long time. Finally, he bowed his head. I do not deserve this kindness. Perhaps not, but that is what makes it kindness. Extended his hand. The war is over. Now we begin the harder work. Building a galaxy where no species is forgotten, where no voice is silenced, where everyone has a place at the table. Will you help us? Slowly, hesitantly, the ancient Valorian took the human's hand. 5 years later, Earth was no longer a quarantined prison. It was the heart of the new Galactic Alliance. Ships from 100 worlds orbited the blue planet that had once been called worthless. The great libraries that had once dismissed humanity as a cautionary tale now taught a different lesson. It's the lesson of a species that refused to give up. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood on a balcony in New Geneva, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. General Kresvoth stood beside her, his massive form silhouetted against the fading light. Do you know why they underestimated you? He asked quietly. Sarah shook her head. Because they measured strength in ships and weapons. They counted soldiers and compared technology. They never understood that humanity's greatest weapon was something they could not see or measure. What was that? Kresvoth looked down at the city below. Humans and aliens walked together through the streets. Children of different species played in the parks. Music from a dozen worlds mixed in the evening air. Hope, he said. Even when the universe gave you every reason to despair, you never lost hope. Even when you were alone, you believed things could get better. Because you believed it, you made it true. Sarah smiled. We had help. We could not have done it alone. No, but you took the first step. You reached out your hand when you had every right to make a fist. That is something the galaxy will never forget.